The champagne was warm when he said it. I remember that, the slightly sour taste on my tongue, the way the bubbles seemed to die before reaching my throat. I remember his laughter echoing through the living room full of important people, people I didn't know but who judged my every move. And I remember the exact words that came out of the mouth of the man I had shared a bed with for 12 years. I'd rather kiss a rat than her right now. It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a slip. It was a public declaration, delivered in the same tone he used to close million-dollar deals. The guests laughed, that kind of nervous laughter people make when they don't know if something is a joke or cruelty. I stood there, in my black dress that he had chosen that morning, holding an empty glass, feeling 30 pairs of eyes on me. No one defended me. No one said, "Hey, that was too far." They just looked away, returned to their conversations about the stock market and trips to Aspen. As if I had ceased to exist in that second. And maybe I had. Maybe the woman I was before that moment died right there, among laughter and glasses of warm champagne. My name is irrelevant now. What matters is who I was then. A cardiac surgeon, 38 years old, hair always tied in an immaculate bun, hands steady enough to hold a beating human heart. I saved lives every day. I opened chests, sewed arteries, returned people to their families. But at home, I was just the decorative wife of a successful investor who built an empire on lies. His name was... No, you know what? I'll just call him he. Because men like him don't deserve a name. They deserve only oblivion. I met him in medical school. I was in my 3rd year, exhausted from double shifts, dreaming of a residency in cardiovascular surgery. He was an economics student, always impeccable in his tailored suits, always surrounded by people who hung on his every word. He noticed me in the library one night, offered coffee, said I had something different. I, an idiot, believed him. We dated for 2 years. We married soon after my graduation. He was already working at an investment firm, earning more in a month than my parents did in a whole year. He said I didn't need to work so hard, that he'd take care of everything. But I insisted. Surgery was my life, my purpose. He smiled, kissed my forehead, said he admired my determination. The first years were good. Or at least I convinced myself they were. He traveled constantly, closed increasingly larger deals, rose through the company's ranks with impressive speed. I operated, saved lives, came home late at night and found the table set, cold dinner, a note saying he had a last-minute meeting. On weekends, there were parties. Always parties. His colleagues, investors, businessmen. I smiled, served drinks, listened to conversations about stocks that didn't interest me. And gradually, so slowly I didn't even notice, he began to erase me. First came the subtle comments. "That dress doesn't flatter you much, love. You've seemed tired lately, you should consider a treatment. Maybe it would be better not to talk about work here. People don't really understand those technical things." I accepted them. Changed my clothes. Bought expensive creams. Stayed quiet in the corners at parties. Then came the unspoken rules. He checked my phone while I slept. Questioned why that resident called me at 11 at night, even if it was about a critical patient. Suggested I take fewer shifts, spend more time at home. "So we can take care of each other," he'd say. But each other always meant me. I stopped going out with my residency colleagues. I stopped calling my sister every week. My parents, who lived in another state, began to complain that I never visited anymore. But he always had something planned. There was always an important party, a crucial dinner for his career. And I, being a good wife, always said yes. Until that night. The party was at our house, a mansion in a neighborhood where each property had electric gates and security cameras. He had invited his partners, some important clients, people whose names I'd seen in business magazines. I had performed a transplant that morning, was exhausted, just wanted to sleep. But he insisted. "It's important to me that you're here. Pretty. Present." He chose my dress. Black, discreet, nothing that would attract much attention. Said I looked acceptable. Kissed my face, not my mouth, never my mouth, not anymore, and went downstairs to greet the first guests. The night dragged on. Empty conversation, fake laughs, men looking at me as if I were part of the decor. I smiled, offered canapes, filled glasses. At one point I tried to approach him. Just touch his arm, lean in for a quick kiss. Something normal couples do. He pushed me away. Not hard, but with enough force to make it clear. And then he said it. I'd rather kiss a rat than her right now. The silence lasted 2 seconds. Then came the laughter. First his, loud and performative. Then the others, nervous and complicit. And there I was, frozen, feeling something inside me break irreversibly. I went upstairs to the bedroom. Locked the door. Sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my hands. These hands that saved lives, that sewed millimetric arteries, that held human hearts. And for the first time in years, I cried. Not a discreet cry. It was something visceral, coming from a place so deep I didn't even know existed. But in the middle of the tears, something changed. A cold clarity took hold of me. I got up, washed my face, looked at my reflection in the mirror. And I decided that this would be the last time he made me feel small. Because I had a secret. Something I had been keeping for 6 months, since I found that first suspicious email on his computer. I wasn't just the decorative wife he thought I was. I was a surgeon, and surgeons know how to be patient. They know how to plan. They know exactly where to cut to cause the most damage. And I was about to perform the most important surgery of my life. No anesthesia. No mercy. I went back to the party half an hour later. Redid my makeup, fixed my hair, went down the stairs with the upright posture I learned in years in the operating room. He didn't even look at me. He was laughing loudly with one of the partners, a glass of whiskey in hand, completely at ease. I smiled, poured more champagne, and waited. Because revenge isn't a dish best served cold. Revenge is a surgery planned months in advance, with every incision measured, every move calculated. And his was scheduled soon. That night, while he slept soundly beside me, because he always slept well, without guilt, without any weight on his conscience, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling. Mentally reviewed every document I had copied, every conversation I had recorded, every lie I had unearthed. He thought I didn't know. Thought I was stupid, naive, too busy with my work to notice. But I knew everything. The offshore accounts. The fraudulent transactions. The deceived clients. The 23-year-old intern he met every Thursday in a downtown hotel. I knew. And I was ready. If you're enjoying this story and want to know how I destroyed his empire piece by piece, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because what comes next will make that humiliation look like child's play. The discovery began with a stupid mistake on his part. A slip so simple that, if I hadn't been paying attention, it would have gone unnoticed like so many other signs over the years. It was an ordinary Tuesday, 6 months before that humiliating party. I had come home early from the hospital. A surgery cancelled at the last minute because the patient had a blood pressure spike. I walked in at 3 in the afternoon. A time when I would normally still be in the operating theater. He was in his office, door closed, voice altered on the phone. I went upstairs, showered, came down to make coffee. That's when I saw his laptop open on the kitchen table. The screen was on. Unlocked. In 12 years of marriage he had never left that computer unlocked and unattended. My first reaction was to ignore it. To respect his privacy, as I always had. But then I heard his voice coming from the office, nervous, almost desperate. I know. I'll fix this before anyone notices. Trust me. Something in his tone turned my stomach. It wasn't the voice of the confident man I knew. It was the voice of someone cornered. Afraid. I looked at the laptop screen. An Excel spreadsheet open. Numbers. Lots of numbers. Names I didn't recognize. Amounts that made my eyes burn just trying to process them. And at the top of the spreadsheet, In red letters, undisclosed accounts. My hands trembled. Cardiac surgeon. Hands that never trembled. Not even when holding a child's heart. Not even when an artery burst unexpectedly. But there, in my own kitchen, looking at those figures, they trembled. I heard his footsteps in the hall. Pure instinct made me close the screen and step away from the computer. I picked up my coffee mug, pretending to stir sugar when he entered. "You came home early," he said, and there was something strange in his voice. Suspicious. Calculating. "Surgery was cancelled," I replied, keeping my tone casual. "Thought I'd relax a bit." He glanced at the laptop, then at me. His eyes scanned my face like a living lie detector. I held his gaze, let a half-smile form on my lips. Years of 30-hour shifts had taught me how to hide exhaustion. Hiding fear was just another skill I'd developed. "Good," he finally said, picking up the computer and closing it with a dry click. "I have a few more calls to make." And he left. But that moment changed everything. That night I waited until he slept. 3 in the morning. He always slept heavily after whiskey, and he'd had 3 generous measures. I went down to his office with silent steps, opening the door a fraction of an inch to avoid creaks. The laptop sat on the desk, as always. But now it had a password. Of course it did. I tried the obvious ones. His birthday, our wedding anniversary, his mother's name. Nothing worked. That's when I saw the slightly open drawer. He always locked everything, but that drawer was ajar by a few millimeters. As if he'd forgotten in a hurry. Or from tension. Inside there was a black planner. I flipped through it quickly, looking for anything that could be a password. And then I found it, a sequence of numbers written in the margin of a page. 6 digits. No explanation. Just numbers. I went back to the laptop. I typed them. The screen unlocked. My heart raced. Cold sweat ran down my neck. I was invading my husband's privacy, violating his trust. But then I remembered that voice on the phone. "Before anyone notices." And I kept going. What I found in the next 2 hours destroyed any shred of guilt I might have felt. Files. Hundreds of them. Organized into folders with coded names. Project A. Transfers B. Client C, offshore. I opened them one by one, and each click revealed a new layer of lies. He was embezzling money. Not small amounts. Millions. Taking clients' investments, funneling them into untraceable accounts, falsifying reports to show non-existent returns. Some clients were elderly retirees who had trusted their life savings to him. Others were small business owners trying to expand. All being stolen from systematically. And there was more. Much more. Emails with an intern. Not just professional. Messages that made my stomach turn. Photos. Explicit conversations. Meeting set every Thursday at 6 at the Riverside Hotel. "I can't wait to see you again, my love." The words he no longer said to me were tossed easily to a girl who had barely finished college. There were messages with his partners too. Talks about how to hide transactions, how to manipulate reports for audits, how to ensure the wives wouldn't notice anything. They laughed. They joked about how we were all too blind or too busy to notice. I copied everything. Every file. Every email. Every compromising photo. I used a USB drive I kept in my lab coat, inserting it into his computer with hands that were now absolutely steady. Surgical training in action. Total focus. Emotions switched off. 4:30 in the morning. I erased the access history. Closed everything exactly as it had been. Put the planner back in the drawer, leaving it ajar by the same few millimeters. Went upstairs, lay down beside him, and stared at his sleeping face. He looked so serene. So innocent. As if he wasn't destroying lives. As if he wasn't cheating on me every week. As if he wasn't a criminal in designer suits. That dawn, something inside me crystallized. It wasn't anger. Anger is hot, explosive, irrational. What I felt was cold, calculated, surgical. In the days that followed, I kept my normal routine. Got up early, went to the hospital, saved lives, came home. I smiled at him. Made dinner. Watched series together on the couch, his arm around my shoulders as if we were a normal couple. But at night, while he slept, I worked. First, I found a divorce lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The best in the city. A woman known for annihilating unfaithful husbands in court. I booked a consultation using my maiden name, paid in cash, said I needed total discretion. She listened to my story in silence. Looked over the files I brought on an external hard drive. And then she smiled, a smile that reminded me of how I smiled before a particularly challenging surgery. Confident. Determined. You have gold in your hands, she said. But we need more. We need indisputable proof not just of infidelity, but of financial crimes. Would you be willing to continue investigating? I was. God, I was. She put me in touch with a forensic accountant. A discreet, meticulous man who had worked for the FBI for 20 years before opening a private consultancy. I handed him all the files. He combed through every transaction, traced each diverted cent, built a dossier that could put my husband behind bars for decades. This isn't just marital cheating, he told me in our third meeting. This is large-scale fraud. Money laundering. Tax evasion. If you take this to the authorities, he won't just lose money. He'll lose his freedom. Good, I said, and my voice was so cold it scared even me. I also hired a private investigator. For the intern. I wanted photos, videos, physical evidence of the meetings. I wanted there to be no shadow of doubt when I presented everything. And he delivered. Photos of them entering the hotel, leaving hand in hand, kissing in the elevator. The girl wearing expensive jewelry that I knew exactly where it came from money stolen from trusting retirees. During those months, he kept being the same man. Subtle humiliations. Cutting remarks. Parties where I was mere decoration. He traveled frequently, always with excuses about important meetings, crucial conferences. I smiled, waved from the door, and the moment he left I called my investigator. He's on the move. Keep surveillance. My sister called once, worried. You're different, she said. Your voice sounds strange. Is everything okay in your marriage? It's perfect, I lied. Just tired from work. But I wasn't tired. I was energized. Every new piece of evidence, every new compromising email, every new file discovered fed me. I was a hunter now. And my prey was completely unaware of the trap closing around him. Until that party. That public humiliation. I'd rather kiss a rat than her. And that's when I decided the time had come. Not to reveal everything in a quiet, bureaucratic process. But to destroy him the same way he destroyed me. Publicly. Completely. In front of everyone who laughed at that disgusting comment. He wanted to turn me into nothing. I was going to turn him into less than nothing. The second party would be in 3 weeks. He announced it during breakfast, 2 days after humiliating me in front of his colleagues. As if nothing had happened. As if those words hadn't torn what was left of my respect for him. We're having another gathering here at the house, he said, chewing toast without looking at me. More formal this time. Important clients. Out-of-state investors. I need you to be presentable. Presentable. As if I were a piece of furniture that needed polishing. Sure, I answered, sipping my coffee. It'll be special. He finally looked at me. There was something in my eyes that made him pause for a second. But then he smiled, that arrogant smile I had learned to hate, and went back to his financial newspaper. He had no idea how special that night would be. In the following days, I sped up my preparations. It was no longer just about gathering evidence. It was about orchestrating a public exposure so devastating that he would never recover. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer. I brought everything: updated files, new recordings, recent photos of the intern. She examined the material with eyes shining with professional satisfaction. "This goes beyond divorce," she said. "You have the ammunition to destroy not only him but the whole firm." "Are the partners involved?" "3 of them, at least," I confirmed. "They all knew. Some participated actively." She smiled. "Then let's think big. Do you just want to leave this marriage, or do you want real justice?" I looked at my hands. Hands that saved lives. Hands that held beating hearts and brought them back to life. But also hands that could cut with deadly precision when necessary. "Real justice," I answered. She nodded. "Then we'll involve the authorities. But we need to do it strategically. If you simply hand over the evidence now, they'll arrest him quietly. Bureaucratic process. He'll hire the best lawyers, maybe reduce the sentence, maybe even escape. Men like him always slip away. What do you suggest?" "Public exposure first. Complete humiliation. Then we bring in the FBI. When he's already destroyed socially, without allies, without reputation. Then they close the net. He won't have anywhere to run." It was cruel. Calculated. Perfectly surgical. "Let's do it," I said. In the following days, I worked on every detail. I hired an audiovisual company, told them it was for a medical presentation. They prepared a top-tier projection system, large screens, crystal clear sound. Everything would be installed in our living room on the night of the party, disguised as modern decor. I also prepared the evidence in a visually striking format. Not just numbers in spreadsheets, but clear graphs showing every stolen cent, dated photos with GPS coordinates of the intern entering and leaving the hotel. Emails projected in giant size, impossible to ignore. Each illegal transaction highlighted in vivid red. It was like assembling a surgical presentation. Each slide had to have maximum impact. Every piece of information had to be indisputable. I also contacted some of the victims. Discreetly. Through the forensic accountant, I got the names of the most harmed clients. I called 3 of them personally, using a blocked number. "My name doesn't matter," I said. "But I have information about your investments. About what really happened to your money." The first was a 72-year-old widow. She had trusted her life savings to my husband. He had stolen $450,000 from her over 5 years. "I knew," she said, her voice trembling. "I knew something was wrong. But he was so convincing. So confident. And I was just a stupid old woman." "You are not stupid," I replied, feeling anger burn in my chest. "He is a criminal. And he will pay for it. But I need you to trust me. In 3 weeks, there will be a party at his house. Do you have the courage to show up?" Silence on the other end. "Then, tell me when and where." I did the same with the other 2 clients. A man who lost the family business. A woman who couldn't pay for her husband's cancer treatment because the money had evaporated into bad investments. All confirmed they would attend. Meanwhile, I kept living my normal life. Hospital. Surgeries. Shifts. But every time I held a scalpel, I thought about how I would use my skills that night. Precise incision. Complete removal of the tumor. Leave nothing behind. He noticed I was different. One night, at dinner, he watched me oddly. "You've been strange lately," he said. "Strange how?" "I don't know. Quieter. But not in a sad way. It's almost like you're planning something." My heart sped up, but I kept my face neutral. Years of shifts had taught me to control expressions. Planning? I'm just tired. Working too much, you know. He studied my face a moment longer, then shrugged. "Maybe you need a vacation. After the party, we can think about it." A vacation. As if strolling on some European beach would fix years of emotional abuse and betrayal. As if money could buy my forgiveness. That would be nice, I lied. A week before the party, I received an unexpected call. It was the private investigator. "There's something you need to see," he said, tense. "In person. I can't talk about it on the phone." I met him in a distant cafe, away from places I frequented. He had a manila envelope in his hands. "I found this digging further into his finances," he began. "There's an account I hadn't seen before. Offshore. Cayman Islands. And the amount inside." He handed me a paper. I looked at the number. My eyes widened. $8 million. "He's planning to flee," the investigator continued. "I found plane tickets purchased. For him and the intern. Departure in a month. No return. He's going to leave you here with nothing, while he starts a new life in another country with stolen money." Something inside me crumbled. Not because I still loved him, but because of the audacity, the coldness. He planned to discard me like trash after 12 years, and live happily with dirty money and a girl young enough to be our daughter. "There's more," the investigator said, hesitating. "The account is in both their names. The intern. She's not just a lover. She's an active accomplice. Signs documents, helps hide transactions. She knows everything." That changed the equation. It wasn't just my husband. It was a complete scheme. Two people destroying lives together. "Thank you," I said, tucking the papers away. "This is exactly what I needed." I returned home that afternoon with crystalline clarity. It was no longer about personal revenge. It was about preventing them from fleeing unpunished. It was about ensuring every harmed person received justice. I spent the following nights refining my presentation. I added the new information. The offshore account. The tickets. The intern's involvement. Each slide was a precise stab. 3 days before the party, I called the FBI. I didn't give my name. I only said I had information about large-scale fraud and money laundering. I scheduled a meeting for the morning after the party. "Why not now?" the agent asked. "Because I need to make sure he has no way to escape. I need to expose him first. Remove all his safety nets. Then you can take him." There was a pause. "We can't officially agree to that." "I'm not asking permission. I'm informing." I hung up before he could reply. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside him, listening to his steady breathing, and wondered what tomorrow would be like. How he would react. If he would try to deny it. If he would beg. If he would realize too late that he had completely underestimated the woman beside him. He shifted in his sleep, turning toward me. In the dark I could only see the outline of his face. A face I had loved. Kissed 1,000 times. That now filled me with nothing but disgust. "Tomorrow," I whispered into the dark, so low he couldn't hear, "you will learn that publicly humiliating someone has consequences." I rose before dawn. Went to the hospital. Performed 3 surgeries that day. All successful. Saved 3 lives while I planned to destroy one. I returned home at 5 in the afternoon. The audio-visual team was already finalizing the installation. He supervised everything, excited, adjusting his expensive tie. "It will be perfect," he said when he saw me. "The perfect night to impress the clients." I smiled. "Yes. It will be unforgettable." The first guests began arriving at 7. I greeted each one. Smiled. Served champagne. The perfect wife in her final act. And when the clock struck 8, when everyone was gathered in the room, glasses in hand, lively conversations filling the air, I positioned myself near the presentation remote. "Attention," I said, my voice calm but firm enough to cut through the conversations. "Before we continue, there is something everyone needs to see." He looked at me, confused. "What are you doing?" I smiled. and I pressed the button. The first image appeared on the giant screen. A graph. Numbers in red. Headings impossible to ignore. And then the show began. The silence that took over the room was absolute. 30 people frozen, glasses suspended in midair, eyes fixed on the giant screen where red numbers glared accusatorily. "What the hell is this?" he said, his voice already losing its usual confidence. I didn't answer. I simply moved to the next slide. A pie chart appeared. Vibrant colors dividing millions of dollars. Each slice had a name. Client Wilson, $450,000 stolen. Client Patterson, $780,000 stolen. Client Rodriguez, $320,000 stolen. 17 names. 17 ruined lives. Total, $8.4 million stolen. "Turn that off now," he ordered, stepping toward me. But 3 of the guests were already on their feet, pale faces, looking between the screen and him. "Wilson," an elderly man said, his voice trembling. "That's me. What does stolen mean?" I advanced the slide. The offshore account appeared. Bank in the Cayman Islands. Current balance, $8,200,000. Account holder's name shining in huge letters. He tried to grab the remote from my hand. I dodged, keeping it out of his reach. Years of surgical reflexes made my movements precise, fast. "You're crazy," he hissed, low enough that only I could hear. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I replied, voice calm like when I announced a surgery outcome to family. "I'm removing a cancer." Next slide. Bank transactions. Dates, amounts, source and destination. Each highlighted line showed money leaving legitimate client accounts and landing in ghost accounts. Then transfers to the Cayman Islands. A perfect trail. Undeniable. One of his partners stood up. "This is a mistake. It has to be." "He wouldn't do this. Wouldn't he?" I asked, looking directly at the partner. "Then maybe you can explain this conversation." New slide. Screenshot of an email. Sender, my husband. Recipient, the partner who had just spoken. Date, 6 months ago. The text was devastating. "We need to be more careful with the transfers. The wives are asking questions. I suggest increasing the interval between diversions. No one suspects small amounts spread over time." Partner's reply. Agreed. My wife almost saw the statements yesterday. "I'll start leaving everything at the office." The man went pale. His wife beside him turned slowly, eyes wide with shock and horror. "Thomas," she whispered. "What is this?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. He was staring at the screen as if it were a death sentence. And it was. I continued. Slide after slide. Compromising emails. Conversations about how to falsify documents. Discussions about bribing auditors. Disgusting jokes about how the wives were too blind to notice. Digital laughter about retirees being easy marks. The room was in a sepulchral silence. Some people cried. Others wore expressions of pure rage. The involved partners tried to leave quietly, but other guests were already blocking the exits, demanding explanations. Then I reached the part I'd saved especially. The intern. First photo, her entering the Riverside Hotel. Date and time in the corner. Thursday, 6:15 p.m. Second photo, him arriving 5 minutes later. Same hotel. Same entrance. Third photo, the two in the elevator. Embracing. Kissing. Fourth photo, hotel receipt. Room 1408. Booked every Thursday for 6 months. Name on reservation. His. Payment method. Company corporate card. I heard someone choke. I looked to the side and saw his mother, an elegant woman of 65, hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Son," she said, voice breaking. Tell me this isn't true. He said nothing. He just stood there, paralyzed, watching his life collapse in high definition. But I wasn't finished. Next slide. Messages between him and her. Intimate conversations that made some people avert their eyes. Promises of a future together. Him saying he would soon get rid of the deadweight at home, referring to me, and they could start a new life. With the sucker's money, he had written in one message, we can live like kings somewhere tropical. You, me, and no worries in the world. Her reply, I can't wait to leave all this behind. Especially your boring wife. How do you stand her? The rage that exploded inside me at that moment was so intense I had to pause. Breathe deeply. Remember that surgeons cannot let emotions interfere with the procedure. This woman, I continued, voice firm, is not just a lover. She is an active accomplice. She signs falsified documents. She helps hide transactions. She receives a commission from every client stolen from. I showed documents proving it. Her signatures. Transfers to her bank account. Substantial amounts. She wasn't a victim. She was a partner in the crime. Then came the final bomb. Plane tickets. 2 of them. Departure in 3 weeks. Destination. Costa Rica. One way. Purchased with embezzled money. They were planning to flee, I explained to the stunned room. Leave all of you here with empty investments, drained accounts, ruined lives, while they live comfortably in another country with your stolen money. That's when the elderly woman, Client Wilson, stood up. Small, frail, but with eyes full of a fury that seemed larger than her body. $450,000, she said, her voice trembling but clear. It was all I had. Savings from 40 years working as a teacher. My husband died and left that money so I could live my last years with dignity. And you stole it. You stole from a widow. She walked toward him. Each step seemed to carry the weight of years of betrayed trust. Look at me, she demanded. He didn't look. He kept his eyes on the floor. I said look at me, she shouted, and the volume surprised everyone. He raised his eyes. And what I saw there was something I had never seen before. Pure fear. Not fear of legal consequences. But fear of facing the real people he had destroyed. I trusted you, the woman continued. I brought my grandson to your office. I told him you were a good man. A successful man. An example. And you are just a thief in an expensive suit. Another person stood up. The man who had lost the family business. 3 generations, he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. My grandfather founded that company in 1952. He passed it to my father. Then to me. I trusted my expansion to you. And now it's all ruined. I had to lay off 27 employees. Whole families depended on those jobs. One by one, the victims rose, sharing their stories. Marriages destroyed by financial stress. Medical treatments they couldn't pay for. Dreams shattered. Futures stolen. And he stood there, shrinking with each testimony, until he looked smaller than the smallest person in the room. That's when the wife of one of the partners turned to her husband. She had been silent until then, processing everything. Now her voice came out cold, controlled, deadly. 15 years of marriage, she said. 2 children. And you were stealing from people to fund your lover? To pay for expensive hotels while I scrimped at the supermarket. He tried to touch her arm. She pulled away as if he were poisonous. Don't touch me. Ever again. Other marriages collapsed right there. Shouting. Crying. Accusations. The elegant party had turned into a public courtroom. Then I heard sirens. My husband heard them too. His face, already pale, went ashen. What did you do? What I should have done years ago, I replied. I called the authorities. The FBI is on the way. I also contacted the Federal Revenue Service and the Securities and Exchange Commission. There are agents waiting outside since the party started. They were just waiting for my signal. I picked up my phone. I typed a simple message, "You may enter." 30 seconds later, the front door opened. 6 federal agents entered, badges visible, guns in their holsters. "No one leave," the lead agent announced. "This is now a criminal investigation scene." I saw the exact moment he understood. There was no escape. No expensive lawyer could save him this time. No charm or manipulation that would work against such solid evidence. He looked at me. Really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. "Why?" he asked. "Why do this publicly? You could have just divorced me." I took a step toward him. Looked into the eyes of the man who had humiliated me, controlled me, erased me for so long. "Because you said you'd rather kiss a rat than me," I answered, voice low but every word laden with weight. "In front of all those people. You turned me into a joke. Into nothing. So I decided to show everyone who the real joke was here. And it wasn't me." The agents approached him. "You need to come with us. Now." He was handcuffed right there, in the living room of the house we bought together, surrounded by people who had admired and respected him, now looking with contempt and hatred. When they led him away, he tried to look back. At me. But I had already turned my back. I had surgery in the morning. Real people who needed saving. I had no more time to waste on men who chose to be parasites. I slept better that night than I had in years. Not because I felt pride or perverse satisfaction, but because finally, after so long, I could breathe without feeling a crushing weight on my chest. The following morning brought cascading consequences. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Lawyers, journalists, even television programs requesting interviews. I ignored them all. I had surgery scheduled at 7 in the morning, and nothing, absolutely nothing, was more important than that. I operated for 6 hours. A heart transplant for a 52-year-old man. Father of 3 children. Retired history teacher who had waited 2 years for that heart. When we finished, when I heard the first strong and regular beat of the new organ, tears came to my eyes. Not from sadness, but from renewed purpose. This was who I was. Not the humiliated wife. Not the woman who destroyed a corrupt husband. But the surgeon who returned lives. In the following days, the story exploded in the media. Not because of my efforts, I refused all interviews, but because it was too big to contain. $8 million in fraud. Respected investment firm revealed as a criminal scheme. 3 partners imprisoned besides him. The intern also detained, attempting to flee to Mexico with 2 suitcases full of money. The trial came 6 months later. I didn't need to testify much. The evidence spoke for itself. But when the prosecutor called me, I went to the stand and looked directly at him for the first time since that night. He looked smaller. Cheap preventive detention suit. Disheveled hair. Eyes that couldn't hold contact. The man who had controlled every aspect of my life now couldn't even look at me. "Can you describe how you discovered the fraudulent scheme?" the prosecutor asked. "He made a mistake," I replied. "He left the computer unlocked. I think he became too confident. Confident that I was either too dumb or too busy to notice. Confident that he had controlled me so well I would never question anything. And what motivated you to investigate so deeply instead of simply confronting him?" I paused. Looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people who deserved complete honesty. "Because he humiliated me publicly," I said. And at that moment, I realized it wasn't just about me. It was about all the people he was destroying. Elderly clients losing their life savings. Families losing businesses. I realized that if anyone had to stop this, it was me. Because I had access. I had evidence. And I had nothing left to lose. The defense attorney tried to paint me as vindictive, a bitter wife fabricating evidence. But every document I presented had a stamp, a signature, independent validation. The forensic accountant confirmed everything. The FBI validated every transaction. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They returned with a unanimous verdict. Guilty on all charges. 17 counts of fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, document forgery. The judge was a 60-year-old woman, gray hair tied in a severe bun. When sentencing came, she removed her glasses and looked directly at him. "Sir," she began, voice cold as steel, "I have seen many criminals in this room, but I have rarely seen someone with so little remorse. You stole from widows, from retirees, from people working honestly to build futures. And you did so with a smile on your face, while constructing the facade of a respectable man." She paused, put her glasses back on. 9 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole before 7. Full restitution to all victims. All assets confiscated. And upon release, you will have a permanent record ensuring you will never work in finance again. I heard a stifled sob. It was his mother, sitting 3 rows behind me. I felt a pang of something that could have been pity. But then I remembered the elderly woman who had lost $450,000. The man who had lost a 3-generation business. The woman who couldn't pay her husband's medical treatment. No. It wasn't pity. It was justice. After the trial, something unexpected happened. The victims began reaching out to me. Not to thank me, though some did, but to ask for help. Wives married to the imprisoned partners. Women who discovered that their husbands were as corrupt as mine. The first was the wife of the partner who had spoken at the party. She found me in the courthouse parking lot, eyes red from crying. "I don't know what to do," she said. "I have 2 small children." He managed all finances. "Now I find out we have nothing. Everything is in ghost accounts. How did you do it? How did you start over?" I looked at this woman. Expensive clothes she soon wouldn't be able to afford, jewelry that would probably be confiscated, and saw a reflection of who I had been. Lost. Scared. But with strength I hadn't yet realized I possessed. "First," I said, "you get the best divorce lawyer you can find. Second, document absolutely everything. Third, remember that you are not responsible for his crimes. And fourth, most importantly, realize that your life hasn't ended. Only the false version of it has ended." I gave her the contact for my lawyer. In the following months, I did the same with 5 other women. We formed an informal support group. Not official. Just women who had been married to men who thought we were too dumb to notice their crimes. We met weekly in a discreet cafe. Shared legal strategies. Exchanged contacts for lawyers, accountants, investigators. We cried together. We laughed together. And gradually, we rebuilt together. One of them told me something I never forgot. "You didn't just save yourself. You saved all of us. You showed that it was possible to fight back." But the rebuilding was not easy. The divorce was brutal. He tried to claim that I had helped with the crimes, that I knew everything. Tried to use my own work against me, saying my surgeon's salary was suspicious. His lawyer was aggressive, cruel, personal. My lawyer was better. She shredded every allegation of his. Showed that I had discovered the crimes on my own. That I had acted ethically by reporting them to the authorities. That every penny I earned came from honest work saving lives. The divorce judge had no patience. "This court will not allow the defendant to use intimidation tactics against the victim who exposed his crimes." Divorce granted. No alimony for either side. Property division limited only to assets acquired before the criminal scheme began. I left that courthouse with my house, bought with my money, before discovering who he really was. My car, my personal savings. He was left with astronomical legal debts and a prison cell. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Every room carried memories I preferred to forget. I bought a smaller, modern apartment, in a part of the city he never frequented. Decorated it in my taste, not his. Colors I liked. Art that inspired me. Space that was completely mine. I returned to surgery with renewed intensity. Took on more challenging cases. Picked up more shifts. But this time it wasn't escape. It was genuine passion. Every life I saved felt more meaningful now. Because I had saved my own life too. My sister visited 6 months after the sentence. I hadn't seen her since before that fateful party. I had distanced myself from family during the years with him. When I opened the door, she hugged me and cried. "I missed you so much," she said. "He stole you from us for so long." "I know," I replied, holding her tightly. "But I'm back now." We spent the entire weekend together. Talking. Laughing. She told me about nephews who had grown up away from me. About parents who had been hurt by my absence but now understood. About a whole life that happened while I was trapped in a toxic marriage. "You seem different," she observed on the last day. "Lighter. More you." And it was true. I looked in the mirror and saw a person I hadn't seen in years. Bright eyes. Genuine smile. Confident posture, not built on external validation, but on inner knowledge of my own worth. 1 year after the sentence, I received an unexpected letter. From him. From prison. I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity won. It was short. 2 pages of uneven handwriting. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he wrote. "I know I destroyed everything we had. But I need you to know that I finally understand what I did. Not just legally, but morally, emotionally. I destroyed real people. I destroyed you. And I carry that weight every day." He continued talking about therapy in prison. About finally confronting who he really was. About deep regret. He ended with, "You were better than me in every way. Always were. And I spent years trying to make you forget that because your strength threatened me. I hope you are living the life you always deserved." I read it twice. Then I put it in the paper shredder. Not because he didn't deserve forgiveness, but because my forgiveness didn't matter for my healing. I didn't need to forgive him to move forward. I didn't need closure from him. I already had my own closure, built with my own strength. 2 years after everything, I found myself in a surprising situation. I was at a medical conference, presenting a new surgical technique I had helped develop. After the presentation, a young woman approached me. "You're her, aren't you?" she asked. "The surgeon who exposed the criminal husband." My stomach tightened. I still wasn't completely comfortable being recognized that way. "I'm a cardiac surgeon," I replied carefully. "That's what matters." She smiled. "To me, you're a hero. I've been in an abusive relationship for 5 years. He controls everything. Money, friends, career. And I just stay there, afraid to leave because I don't know how. But your story showed me that it's possible. That we can be strong." I took her hand. "You're already strong. You just need to remember that. And when you're ready, when you truly decide, you'll realize you had power all along." I gave her my contacts. Lawyer, therapist, support group. And I wished her luck. Because that was the true lesson of everything. Not revenge. Not destruction. But the discovery that the power we seek outside has always been within. He didn't destroy me when he humiliated me. He freed me. Freed me from the illusion that I needed him. That I needed his approval. That my worth was tied to how he saw me. Today, 3 years later, I wake up in a sunlit apartment. I operate in a hospital where I am respected, not as someone's wife, but as a brilliant professional on my own merit. I have genuine friendships. Close relationship with family. Clear purpose. Sometimes I still think about that night. The party. The words that changed everything. "I'd rather kiss a rat than her." And I smile. Because he was right about one thing. There was a rat in that relationship. Just wasn't me. If you made it this far in this story and it touched your heart in some way, subscribe to the channel. Because we all deserve to remember that we are stronger than we think. And that fresh starts, no matter how scary they seem, are sometimes the greatest gifts life can give us.